Christianity is the tiny little one. And in this country, like Christianity is like the big one, and Islam is, one of the minority religions, if you will. And so there's a different perspective from when you're in Indonesia and you're a Muslim and you're a Christian, and when you're in the United States and you're a Muslim or you're a Christian. So there's some of that going on. But I believe that we all want a place of respect and a place of cooperation. And I see us as allies in trying to build the kind of world that will give us a future for us and our children, for you guys who are sorry we don't want to leave you too bad a mess, then we've already left you. I'm sorry. But I blame their generation too, but we can't keep passing along. We got to take responsibility. One of the things about friendship is many times when people are prejudiced, they don't actually know anybody that's even from that. They might not know a person who's black, and they might think black people are like this. Or they might not know a person who's Muslim, and so they'll think Muslims are like this, and the way they get their news from TV or something, or from Facebook, and that's not a very good source of information. The problem is then when they get to know one Muslim, then they might think Muslims are terrible, but not you. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not enough just to know like a Muslim.
Yusuf said he's on his way.
Or a Christian. So friendship. So friendship is, I think, another step. The way I say it is beyond friendly to friendship. Because we all ought to be friendly. But what does it take when you get that? When you actually become friends? What's that? To me, the path to God is one of increasing closeness. And like the spokes of a wheel, as we get closer to the center, as we get closer to God, we get closer to each other. And so I think it would be inevitable that people who would love God would love each other and be friends. And I think that would go across religious boundaries. I think it does. I know it does. So that's what I wanted to say, and that's my little start thing. And then do you want me to hold it to look at you while you do some talking, or how would you like to do this, Shams?
Sure, if you like.
And one other thing about Shams is, to me, that is the name that comes from one of the most important friendships that the world has ever known. I don't know if that looks really. Oh, there it is. Because Shams is the name of the man who inspired Rumi. And so his love for Shams and his friendship with Shams set the whole world on fire. I'm going to try this because it was, look at that. It's just there. That's better. It was like looking like some kind of modern thing. So I'll keep trying. Go ahead, Shams, say something about it. And there you go. All right.
The first is good to begin with God's name.
Yes.
In the name of God, the most compassionate, most merciful. I think the first thing to really say from a personal perspective is that as a Muslim, that the foundation of the religion is what I believe in, that God is one and alone, and that God has sent messengers and prophets throughout time, and that among these messengers, Muhammad exists as one of these messengers. And this is arguably a statement of, I won't say division, but distinction that distinguishes us from the followers of other religions. But the book that came to Muhammad, peace be upon him, it says, and it's really one of my favorite quotations. It says, if God had wanted, he would have made you all a single community. If God had wanted, he would have made you a single community. And essentially, that's what has happened. The Quran also says that God intentionally made people different. So So first of all, different genders. There's only two of them, not the 25 of them that we see in today's world. But that God made us as different genders, different races, different nationalities, um, different colors. And these are some of the things that the Quran itself actually emphasizes. Um, so even though there are differences that exist like that, the differences in race, or in this case, the differences or in another case, perhaps you could say the differences in how we perceive things theologically. Um, I honestly don't see that as a contradiction of the Islamic idea that there's only one God, Muhammad is his messenger. I don't see that as contradicting the Islamic idea, or that Islam proclaims itself to be an expression of, or the expression of truth. In other words, the expression of truth doesn't necessarily have to lead to it doesn't have to lead to conflict. No, in other words, God made us to embody differences. And if he had not, then this world would be, frankly, a very bloody, a very boring place. And so, the differences that exist are okay, even theologically. And I really believe that, even theologically. I mean, we can have theological discussions and be firm in what we believe, and we can learn from the other. That doesn't mean we have to accept what everything that the other says is necessarily true, but it enriches us. And really, the fact that differences exist, it enriches us as human beings. Um, in terms of friendships, in terms of relationships, there are a couple of things that I want to share from the Islamic scripture, namely the Quran. And one of the examples is that of parents. Now, Quran uses this statement: the parents are people who don't believe. The child or children are people who believe. The parents attempt to impose their view, their way of worship, their object of worship. They attempt to impose that upon their child. The Quran says, don't follow them in this aspect, but keep relations with your parents in this life. وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. Keep good ties or good relations with them in this life. I think that's a good place to show that again, that having differences does not mean that the relationship has to be squandered, that the relationship has to be destroyed. Um, as a sort of a direct as sort of a direct statement to perhaps some of the things that we're all familiar with, interfaith meetings. That, well, okay, we go to an interfaith meeting once a month. We go to a church or a synagogue or to a masjid or to some place where the followers of that religion don't follow they're followers of a different religion, or we are interacting with people who follow a different religion or a different understanding. Now, that experience is not for everybody. Not everybody is comfortable to go. Some Muslims may not be comfortable to go to a church as we are in now, and similarly, some Christians may not be comfortable to go into a mosque or to any other place, and that's fine. That really is fine. And for some, actually, and I don't want to name any particular denominations because I don't want to be seen as attacking other particular denominations, but there are religious denominations that say it's forbidden to go into the religious home of another. There are some religious denominations which actually say that. So we're all comfortable at our level. We're all comfortable at our level. But in terms of the relationships, in terms of the friendships, and I speak in a sense with my long relationship with Pastor Ed and with many others, is that there's something to be gained from having friendships and having relationships with people who don't think necessarily in the same way that you think. And it goes back to the ayah, or to the Quranic sentence. If God had wanted, He would have made you all the same people. He would have made you all to think the same and talk the same, etc. So there are four things that um, that at least on my end that I really gained. And the first thing is knowledge of other faiths. Knowledge of other faiths. Now, Pastor Ed was mentioning earlier how people may hate a particular group because they have never had any encounters. They've never had any experiences with anyone from that particular group. But then when they do have an encounter with that particular group, they stereotype that group based off of that one person. But in any case, one of the things that I gain from interfaith discussions or interfaith meetings, whatever you want to call it, is knowledge of other faiths, straight from the horse's mouth, not as a polemical device or something that we find on the internet. It was simply through interaction with the people who are learned in that particular religious understanding, religious tradition. The second thing that, again, I gained is friendships. Third thing is relationships. Now, Pastor Ed was mentioning. I hope I understood you right. That we are all we all have to sort of work together to deal with the common problems that we face, regardless of our religious label. And that can only happen through relationships, through developing those networks, that those connections of trust and willing to work together to solve different things that we are all facing. And the fourth thing that, at least again, that I gain is appreciation for my own faith. For me, I don't recall ever having an experience in terms of interacting with followers of other faiths where I felt that my faith in Islam was diminished. If anything, my faith in Islam increases. It doesn't decrease, rather it increases. And not just even my faith in Islam as my own faith, but appreciation for faith in general. That faith in God, the one who has created all of us, that is really the foundation for everything else that has to follow. So faith is not only necessary to survive, but faith is necessary to thrive. So we live in, especially the last couple of years, maybe a year and a half has been for a number of people. These have been times of great confusion and great panic, etc. But if we have faith, then it's not so bad. So there is, I'm going to stop in a moment, but I want to stop by sharing this particular statement in the Quran, which, to be honest, I don't think I've said this publicly before, but I've shared this with non-Muslims. I told them to recite this statement when it seems like everything is overwhelmed. So in the Holy Quran, there is a statement that should be recited as a statement. You can say a statement of affirmation, or a statement that's giving strength to the person reciting that statement. And it's the end of the 9th chapter. And I'll say it in Arabic and then share the translation. It says, Hasbi Allahu, la ilaha illahu, alayhi tawakkaltu, wa huwa rabbul arshil azim. This is what it says. It says, and it says a person is supposed to recite this. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is told to recite this, and then by extension, those who follow him are told to recite this. It says, "Say, God is sufficient for me." It is the ninth chapter, verse 129, if I'm not mistaken. It says, "God is sufficient for me. None deserves worship except Him. Upon Him I place my trust. He is the Lord of the magnificent throne. Hasbi Allahu la ilaha illahu alayhi tawakkaltu wa huwa rabbul arshil azim." So I will end my particular part of this discussion with that statement. So, any comments or questions?
So the topic is the relations between faiths and the positive side of it. I'm gathering that's the topic.
Yeah. The topic that was actually advertised was relationships or friendships between people who adhere to different religious paths.
Okay. I think conditioning or programming, I'll call it programming, plays a big part in it. It can be dangerous and unhealthy to stay within your own conditioning because there's no backstory to it. Most of the time, if you dislike another group, it's because of your conditioning. It's because of the programming that you've had. And so you don't understand that you don't know who's who all the time. You don't know who the doctors are that you need to take care of you. You don't know who the teachers are who are teaching you. You don't know who the people are who have built your country or your city or your house or anything like that. And those people are most likely a mixed bag of different faiths and things like that. So in those instances, we don't seem to care about that kind of stuff. But I mean, they have the same needs and things that we do. But when we step outside of our conditioning and usually use our own feelings instead of those that we've been conditioned to feel, then usually we can form friendships. But we have to be open to that. You have to be open to stepping outside of your programming in order to care about other people and in order to recognize their need to worship the way they worship, and their end is basically the same as yours. They basically have the same desires that you have, the same needs that you have. That's how we all of different faiths end up having the same careers, the same living in the same place, because we all want the same things. So if you step outside of what you've been programmed to think and feel, then most of the time you make some really good connections and relationships with people and all of that without having to try to force your way of thinking and feeling on them.
Yep.
Can you thank you, that was really right on.
It was Surah 9, the last verse, I think. Is that what you were asking?
No, I want to know the translation.
Oh.
Yes, so
Allah is sufficient for me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Allah is sufficient for me. None deserves worship except Him. Upon Him I place my trust. He is a Lord of the magnificent.
I can only type so fast.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Do a vocal recording, a voice recording of it.
No, because worship. Okay, worthy of worship, but He.
Yes. Upon Him I place my trust. He is a Lord of the magnificent throne. Yeah, it's a very, very beautiful text. And yours.
I was just going to say that, and I imagine that as a Muslim in this country, and African American, there's a possibility that you have some, Christians in your family or around, and it might be. And so the story of the Good Samaritan is common in the Christian faith. Knowing it's one thing, practicing is another. But it's a case of intentionally not understanding what someone is saying when they say, "Oh, love your neighbor as yourself," and then they go, "Well, who's my neighbor?" It's like, and then Jesus's answer is that the person who acts like a neighbor. So instead of saying, he's like basically saying, "You be the neighbor." because he picks a Samaritan who was a an alternative religious group of that day, and basically says he was the guy that acted like the neighbor, so he was kind of turning things on its head, and it would almost be like if it was being told today, Jesus might tell a Christian group there was a Muslim that helped, and if he was talking to a Muslim group, he might say, and it was a Christian that came and helped, because the point is it's the person who reached out and did the neighborly thing, that did the right thing, without the regard for what the religious differences were, or the ethnic differences. So we all know that, and practicing it though is the thing. But I agree. Our programming, we project on people who we think we are, and we react to them out of our imagination of who they are instead of who they actually are. To get to actually who they are, it takes some more time and attention and letting those things go. That's like when you get married and you think you know the person, and because you're marrying the projection you might have of them, and then after a few years you see who they really are, and hopefully that's good. But we have these ideas about who people are, and we don't really know who they are right away. Friendship gets down that path.
So, Samaritan is a religion, right?
Yes, the scholarship today is that Samaritans see themselves as the real Jews. The tradition is that they only accept the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, but that they believe that God intended the place of worship to be in Mount Gerizim instead of Jerusalem. And so it's a very interesting what the scholars know. There are very few Samaritans left in the world. But even back in Jesus' day, there was tension. The story was that the Samaritans weren't from around there. They weren't really Jews. They were Persian people that the Persians brought in during an exile. Anyway, they only did that with the super elites. The regular people were always left behind. They needed somebody to farm the fields. But there was a lot of anxiety in Jesus' day between Jews and Samaritans in terms of who really had it right religiously. So Jesus crossed that boundary by saying that the Samaritan did right. And he did it talking, he also talked to the Samaritan woman at the well and said that it doesn't matter where you worship, this mountain or that mountain, that God is spirit.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, because I know growing up, you hear the Good Samaritan and you just think that's a good person. You don't really consider or
The origin of the
are
word
educated
Samaritan?
who the Samaritans are.
Yeah.
You think it's a translation for good people.
That was the name of the hospital I was born in, Good Samaritan.
Oh, that's great.
This is my son Yusuf. I don't know if y'all remember him.
Yeah, I do. I've seen you again, man. You keep getting bigger, I keep getting littler. Wonderful.
Grapes and cheese.
Yeah, please help yourself to the cheese, the grapes, the crackers, and there's water in the refrigerator.